Our objective is to explain sexual abuse from the psychology and impact in the life of infants, for which was documentary research and description of the definition of these terms. We understand that sexual violence is a universal problem which affects the overall well-being of the victim and their families. The results confirm that child sexual abuse is a global problem that is on the rise. In the Comprehensive Penal Organic Code, Article 170 mentioned that sexual abuse is defined when the victim is under 14 years old or has some kind of disability from getting any serious infection or sexuality transmitted disease and suffer permanent psychological damage. These facts are developed particularly in environments apparently safe, as they are in the home, schools, or in the community where stakeholders are persons close to the victim or family, as well as some unknown. Therefore, it is important to evaluate and work with different areas. Sexual abuse can be classified based on two terms: coercion, which consists in that the offender exercises before the victim pressure, physical force, and deception to achieve its mission. The asymmetry of age that occurs when the abused apparently makes the decision of an independent and autonomous manner, but it is not this way, because both the maturity, experience, and point of view are different from part of the victim and the aggressor, making this sexual relationship outside of normal parameters. These cases are difficult to classify since often the victims are small with limited verbal skills or a disability, and rarely there are witnesses. According to Pompey and Lopez, in sexual offense there are no direct witnesses of the fact. The expert evidence is one of the most valuable elements in the process of seeking justice. The definition of Berliner and Elliot it as a sexual activity with a minor who uses force or threats, no matter the age of the abuse, with them independent for the child to understand the nature of this activity or having been duped, including touching or acts that do not have physical contact or penetration. The American Academy of Pediatrics in 1999 defined child sexual abuse when a child is engaged in sexual activity that this cannot reason and which it is not prepared, nor can give conscious consent, and that violates laws and or social prohibition. Sexual activities include all forms of genital, vocal, or anal with or towards the child, equally as abuse without contact, or use a child in the production of pornographic material.
Sexual violence must not necessarily have penetration by the offender. As defined above is a set of simulation that the integrity of the child, hurting him both physically and mentally. In this case, the signals emitted the victim may be or non-verbal, therefore they must be carried in a relevant way. To understand this type of aggression seems relevant to explain why a person feels regarding sexual relationship with a child. The abuser have a marked immaturity that make them feel like children, therefore have emotional needs that make them relate to other children. Another factor could be the low self-esteem that leads them to find relationships that preview power and control to contrast their sense of personal inoffensively. Narcissism of the characteristics of abuser is necessary to prevent child sexual abuse. Not all abuse involves physical consequences, but their absence doesn't indicate that it has not occurred, which leads to pay closer attention to the details of the speech of the child as their emotional state, detailing each happening of way clear. Fear the presence of the so-called abuser. Shame or rejection to tell what happened. Evident sadness or despair to enjoy activities. According to the persecution between 2015 and 2017 were recorded 27,666 allegations of sex crimes in the country. Of these, 4,854 are against boys, girls and adolescents, of which half has judged with this half only 816 cases have convictions. This means that from 4,854 cases of children who caught breaking the family, social and institutional silence to denounce. In 17% of cases had a convictions.
Therefore, tools such as interview and observation should be made with caution. On the other hand, the time which elapses the process is also a determining factor, since in children 3 years presented greater distortion in his memory in a span of 1 and 3 weeks, since traumatic events are evident losing information central to the case. Another complication that is presented at the time of the intervention is that victims frequently withdraw from the verdict issued by its primary environment, i.e., close relative suggestion that the child so that he retract his speech, generating problems long term, as the creation of false memories, or worse still, develop some type of depression or other disorders. This type of withdrawal is often seen from two perspectives. The victim denounces the events, it tells the truth, but retracts when it is lying or when it gives up. The verdict it is returning to the truth. It is therefore of vital importance that the professional is specialized in legal or forensic psychology and have a high degree of knowledge. Ideas and techniques that can intervene in a feasible manner as requested by the judge or justice auxiliaries. Eso es todo. Girls working as domestic servants unpaid in exchange for food and a place to live. They represent nearly 70% of child victims of sexual assault and Port-au-Prince. Some adaptations should be made to treat children and adolescents to welcome us in the judicial system, as proposed by Myers, to accept children or adolescents as competent witnesses, deploying cameras of Gesell for the better development, allowing the presence of a close person that serves as support for the child in case it doesn't feel comfortable being alone and harm at the broadcast of their testimony. Avoid technical terminology, protect the privacy of children, preserve the testimonials on audio or video to avoid withdrawal in case of oral proceedings. According to Maffioletti and Salinas, expert assessment is based on 3 points for collecting information, which are psycho, which is the exploration of the person in the field of cognitive, affective, family, school, and social development. Analyze the context allows you to translate the facts investigated in a scenario. Analysis of the credibility of the criterion of the child by a professional to rule out fictitious stories. When they are allowed to tell their own story with these words, of the events that have witnessed or experienced. They can give highly truthful testimony. For the drafting of the report, it is necessary to govern only as requested, have a wide variety of data to make it more true, not, not make judgments of value, show objectivity and responsibility. You must include the objective of the case. Describe in detail the facts, detailing the status of the assessed person. Describe the factors or criteria that were used to write the report. Conclusions, annexes, and data from the professional or expert in charge. Expose true documentation, audio or videos, if you own it, since each defendant does not usually accept the blame and only evidence is the testimony of the minor and present in the physical consequences. It is important to determine if the physical damage is due to abuse or if it belongs to other causes. It is important to determine if the physical damage is due to abuse or if it belongs to other causes. Also reveal if you experience bleeding, gonorrhea, or any sexually transmitted disease. This will help recognize if representatives or any known previously instruct the child in distorting his statements or if the child has reason to distort the facts. The work of the professional in this area is based on identifying the events in the environment that develops as there can be some complications as the influence of family members in the testimony of the victim, deceit or manipulation, feelings of shame and guilt that generate ignored situations or events, fear of the abuser or lose their appreciation or care since they are usually suggesting and seducing the child to create friendly links that are difficult to denounce. In addition, in some circumstances, there is no physical repercussions or psychological. So, to identify signs of abuse, but they are evident behavior as promiscuity or on the contrary opposition to contact but to interpret it with a sexual nature or physical generalized or defined as sexual abuse. It should also be taken into account physical indicators, behavioral and emotional child, as well as environmental indicators, mainly related to the therefore. No, wait.
The manifestation emitted by Hunter their years of present themselves a disorder of sleep, change, behavior or power. The the receiver sexual activity in the quarter in the preschool are manifested in change in activity. Variation in the border control, the prevention learn problems spins on night, gains weight, sexual team or masturbation's problem is an indication of the COVID and the fear of the separation of the animals. To take into the consideration your child and analyzing maybe to hunt the intervene with special spines of the parts of the body some sexual and hence the forms of clans in propitiation the posture of the object of larger the presence of the people in the way in the sexual of the abuse. The sexually child and abuses which not they have more sexually behavior on the game and sexual they are present high levels of sexual in the female on the main hinter levels erotics. They have a will last has the dates and and aspects for the writing of report the case is exhausted to really the of course and the testimony.